Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to be showing you 5 different ways to create a Geode Freshie. I wanted to mention that the silicone mat that I'm baking on in the video is very important when you're doing these so that you have a very smooth, shiny, flat front to your geodes. I will link it in the description. This video is going to be a long one. Let's get started. The first one I'm going to be showing you is a very traditional style geode. I bought this. It is originally an egg-shaped cookie cutter, and when I got it home, I just took some pliers and kinked it up to give it more of a misshapen, natural edge, something, geode shaped. Then I have a smaller one that fits inside. This was a pumpkin cutter, and I just kind of squished it about, same thing, just to give it a little bit of a irregular shape and to kind of fit it within the boundary of the larger one. This here is just a piece of foil that I shaped and smashed down, kind of rolled it and pushed down on the edges to make it very flat, almost like a little mountain shape, but very flat on the front. That's gonna be our center hole for our geode. So getting started, we're gonna measure, I'm gonna show you how to measure each color of beads. For this one, it's important to pick a very white bead. I know that some of the beads, the oils can turn them yellow or give them a little bit of an off-colored shade. So for this, it's really important that you use clear oil that you know stays clear in the sun. So we're gonna start by measuring how many beads we need for this outside ring. Now, because this is very narrow and it's hard to pour the beads in there, and we are eventually gonna have to do that when we're actually putting it together, I'm just gonna put the cookie cutters together so that I have a larger space to pour the beads in just for measuring sake. So it doesn't take longer because I'm trying to get them in the little crack. So that looks like it'll be good. And I don't mind the extras because there are some spaces here that I'm not getting beads. So a little bit of overpour is just fine. So these are gonna be for our outer rim, and we're going to put them into our cup to mix our color. Actually, these are gonna be lighter, so I'm gonna grab my light pink cup. For the middle piece, we're gonna put these two things together, pour the beads right in. And for this section, I'm just gonna take some of the beads. I'm not measuring these, it's just gonna be an eyeball because I'm just tossing a few of them in there. I don't need a lot of them. And then the rest of these beads we're leaving clear. We're not adding any color to them. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix the colors. Now that I've mixed my colors that I'm choosing to do, we're gonna go ahead and start pouring. For this one, I'm leaving a lighter edge with a darker ring and then the clear in the very center. But you can arrange your colors any way you'd like, and of course also use any color combination that you would like. So we're gonna start by putting these together. Get everything in the position that we want it. And I'm gonna start by filling the outside ring. So I have a few left that haven't fit perfectly, and then there are some that have fallen around in here, which I'm not concerned about. I think to have a few in here adds to the natural imperfections of a real stone. So that's fine, we're gonna leave those in there. Now I'm gonna take the darker colored beads and I'm just going to try to get them as close to the edge as I can. But once again, stones are not perfect, so I'm not trying to get an exact line. I'm just trying to not overrun the top of the foil with the color. Okay, so now I'm gonna come in and just any that are on top of the foil, I'm gonna push off. There. And I'm gonna come in with my clear beads and give a good layer. I'm gonna take the rest of my darker beads and go around the edge again. This time I'm okay if they're a little bit closer to the foil. But still focusing on this outer rim. And then fill completely with the clear beads. I'm gonna go ahead and lift this middle cutter out. I'm gonna even everything out. And then with my remaining lighter color beads, I'm just gonna go ahead and toss them up here just so they get used. One thing I am gonna do is I want to expose the foil here. So as the beads melt down, it goes around the foil instead of just like making a thin film over the top. So just the very tip of it. It doesn't, you don't have to dig it out, just to make sure that the very center is exposed. Now we're gonna go ahead and bake. Now that this one has cooled enough to get it out of the cookie cutter, you know how much you can see some of the variation in it. Now we're just gonna release it by pushing against the edges of the cutter, not dead center. It's a good way to bend your cutters. And then to get the foil out, I'm gonna slightly bend the Freshie to break the foil away. And then I'm gonna push against the exposed back and pop it out. So now we're left with this really clear hole here that emulates a natural stone. You look close up. It's got like a lip and everything. And now we can move on to decorating it. So this next step is pretty easy. You're gonna need some translucent glitter. I really like using this one. It's from Walmart. And we're just gonna take some Mod Podge. For this particular situation, it doesn't matter if it's gloss or matte, just Mod Podge. And we're gonna apply the glue to the hole and all the way around the lip, like right where the flat part of the Freshie starts, where it was around the foil. And you wanna apply a decent amount of glue to make sure you're getting into all those cracks and crevices. This glue does dry rather quickly, so you want to work pretty quickly. And you just want to make sure that you get all the way down into the hole. All the way around. All right. Now we're just going to dump the glitter right into that space. The reason you want to use the translucent is because otherwise you'll lose that slight see-through crystal appearance that we intentionally made by using the clear beads in the center. If you don't want that appearance, that's fine too. It's up to you whichever way you want to do it. So there we've got a pretty good coat. I'm just going to tap out any excess. And then I'm going to dump this back in to my glitter. Now you could stop here. You could add extra rings of glitter where you wanted them. I typically leave it as is at this point. But for the video, I am going to coat the edge in Mod Podge and add a gold glitter outside. And I'm gonna come over the edge just a little bit so you get a little bit of a gold glitter ring. And since this is such a much larger surface than what we just did, I'm gonna do it in sections so that my glue doesn't start drying by the time I get around to the other side. And any of this excess glitter will brush off once we're done. So now we're just gonna set this aside and let it dry. So this one is dry now, and I'm gonna show you how I brush the glitter off to save you guys the sight of having to look into my trash can, because that's how I usually do these, is over my trash can. I'm gonna do them over this bag. So one important thing about this is that you need a really stiff brush. A soft paintbrush is not going to work as well. This one is very stiff, very coarse. The bristles are very firm. It really helps to pick up and grab that leftover glitter when you're dusting it off. So, and you see how I kind of go down in a direction like this, almost as if I'm scraping it. And I'm not sure how much that's showing up on camera, but you can see it's taking the glitter right off. All right, I'm just gonna bring it into the middle and kind of, this won't really be touched a whole lot, so if there's still a little bit of loose glitter in here, it's probably not gonna come off on a customer's hands or on anybody's hands if you're gifting it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go around the edge and brush off any excess. And make sure I do a quick pass over the back. And then I'm gonna go one more time over the front and really clean it up. Sometimes for smaller details, like if I've got a mold that I've done that has the little details in it and I can't get the brush in there to really get the glitter off, sometimes using canned air or like that keyboard cleaner really works well. Most of the time I can just get it with this little brush. So that's it, and other than putting your string and hanging it, that one is completely done. For this next one, it's gonna be super easy. We're just gonna measure our beads out like normal. I am using a round cookie cutter for this one, but you could really do this with any shape you want. It doesn't have to be round. For this one, we're just gonna do one basic color for all the beads. So just choose what color you want to be your main color. So once it's baked, all of the geode effects are gonna be put on after the fact. So the color that you're gonna be making these is gonna be on the outer edges here. So a space over here, this section, and then a section over here, and your whole geode effect will come through the center. So for this one, I'm just gonna do black. And I've actually only mixed a little bit of color in here. I'm gonna put the cookie cutter down and I'm gonna do a very thin layer of barely colored beads. This is gonna give a more translucent, kind of cloudy effect instead of like a solid color, and it's gonna leave some variation where the darker beads will fall and melt into the spaces left by the gaps. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add in more mica. And I'm actually doing a silvery black on this one instead of a intense dark black. So now I'm just gonna pour these over the lightly colored ones. Pat down. And bake. Now this one has been cooling for a super long time, so it literally just falls out of the cookie cutter. So this would be the point where you want to trim around your edges. I'm going to skip over that right now. I'm just going to go ahead and decorate it, and once it's done, after the video is filmed, I'll go around and trim the edges. I do want to mention that when you are baking these, it is a great idea to bake on the lower rack of your oven because you want these surfaces really smooth. You don't want to get any of the, I mean, you can see some of them on here, the little gaps and things like that, which those are pretty tiny, they're not a big deal, but you don't want a bunch of those. You want it as flat and smooth as you possibly can. And the lower you bake in your oven, the closer this bottom side will be to the heating element to make sure that it melts really, really well, without super overcooking the top, because as you can see here, it's really not overcooked at all. All right, getting started with this one. I'm actually gonna be mixing one of my glitter colors with several different glitters. This is the main color I want it to be, but I want there to be a little bit more chunky type glitter in there, so I'm gonna use this gold holographic. I'm just gonna use this little cup, and I'm gonna pour some of this in here. Some of these. Some of this smaller gold holographic to help it blend a little bit. And because I lightened it with the gold, I'm gonna throw some brown in here to bring back that darker shade. Ultimately, I want kind of a rusty autumn orange type color. So that should be fine, and that should be plenty. If not, then I will just go over any gaps with some of the packets that I have here. These glitters I got from Hobby Lobby, and then these were from a package on Amazon with a lot of different colors, or not Amazon, excuse me, Walmart with a lot of different colors. So now that we've got our glitter mixture, the color that we want, I'm gonna start by making the geode cut, the very center of it, by using the Mod Podge and a paintbrush, and I'm just going to make kind of a wavy triangle line. And then I'm gonna fill that in with Mod Podge. And you don't want the lines to be perfect. Geodes and natural stones are not perfect. So if your lines are too perfect, it can kind of come across as plain or too straight. So that's good for that. And I'm gonna cover this in black glitter. And once again, tap off the excess. Now I haven't waited for this to dry, and if you're careful, it really doesn't make a difference. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna outline what I did there with the black with more Mod Podge. And I'm gonna start by just outlining it with about a same thickness line all the way around. Now this is really where the imperfections come into play, and the more of this that you put into it, the more natural it will look and the more character and definition it'll have. So any of these like that come out, just bring them out a little bit more. Just curves that point outward, bring those curves out. And it gives it more of a distorted shape, which overall looks more natural. And then we're just gonna go over that with this other glitter. And I'm gonna kind of tap around so the glitter will shift and maybe fill in any holes that I missed. And then dump. So now we're gonna set this aside and let it dry. This one is dry and we're ready to brush this one off. So I'm gonna actually start by doing all of the glitter areas first to get off any excess, and then I'll come back around the edges where there's not supposed to be any glitter. Just so if I clean this area first and then I start brushing excess off of here, it's just gonna get back onto these areas, which means I'm just doing double work. So brushing through the areas that had glue, kind of go different directions. Okay, that should be good. Now I'm gonna clean up where the glitter shouldn't be. Sometimes the super fine glitter will be a little bit harder to get off, especially if whatever fragrance you use kind of leaves a sticky feeling. I mean, not completely sticky, but more of like a waxy feeling as opposed to just completely dry. I know that some of my oils do that. It'll be a little bit more difficult to get off in those cases, but I have found that a little extra glitter in some places that it's not supposed to be isn't the end of the world, and sometimes it's actually a bonus. It adds to it. So we've got the glitter off of this one, and now we're gonna add the final touch. I'm using another one of these paint bottles. I'm going in with kind of a teal, dark teal blue. And I'm gonna go around the edge of the glitter and do a thin line. Now I'm gonna take a small paintbrush and I'm just gonna grab the line and brush it out. Taking some of the streaks out a little further than others. So we kind of have a messy line here around. I'm gonna add details, just any place, pull that paint out, any place that looks like it may need it, or thicken up the line in certain areas. All right, so I'm happy with the way that looks right there. And then to give it a good clean edge, I'm gonna take the paint bottle again, and I'm gonna go back around the outline. And I'm gonna leave that to dry. So as this one has been drying, I have decided I don't really like that dark of blue. I think that it would look better with a lighter color to give it more definition. So I'm gonna just repeat the steps that I showed you before, going over what's already painted. And now we will wait for it to dry. Probably not a huge difference from before and after, but now that the paint is dry, I just wanted to give another view of this one also, so that you could see the finished result.